Hello students, this is Hardik sir and today we will be starting our third lesson of history, the Delhi Sultans part 3. So as we have completed our both the parts, if you have not watched those videos, please watch them carefully and also keep reading your textbook for much more information. So as we have completed with number of dynasties, we ended our part 2 with the Lodi dynasty, and we have seen that the period of Delhi Sultan ranges from 1206 to 1526. We have got information about all the different dynasties in the previous video. Now finding about the Delhi Sultans, as you can find the title, from the title itself you can understand that to find about something means to find about the history. So we need some sources. So we are going to discuss about different sources which are mentioned over here and also some of the important details as we have already got. So first you can find inscription, coins, architecture, those all things provide us a lot of information. So these means they are all archaeological sources. Apart from archaeological sources, we have written records of the past, and those written records, as we are also helped with histories, that means Tariq in singular and Tawarik in plural as used in Persian. So the language of administration under the Delhi Sultans was Persian, and that's why as it is written Tariq, that means history, and Tawarik, that is in plural. So ultimately we get information about the history about this particular period from number of sources. The authors of Tawarik were the learned people, secretaries, administrators, poets, courtiers, and we have already got information in the first video. They were so important people that even they advised the rulers on governance and also emphasized the importance of the just rule. They always emphasized on just rule, not unjust rule should be there. So this is the information which we get from these sources of history, from the written records which we have finding from the history. This is the picture from your textbook only. As you have already read the textbook, you might have found these pictures. So there are titles ABCD given, and about those ABCD you will find the details. There are the 4 stages of making a manuscript. So whatever the details were written with hand are known as manuscript. So those are historical records which were written by hand, and they are known as manuscript. So before, this is the time we are discussing before the invention of the printing presses. So figure A informs you that how the paper was prepared. So first stage was of preparing the paper, second stage was of writing the manuscript, with the third stage, as you can find, the melting of gold, and it was melted to highlight the important words and passages in manuscript, and last and the final part was about the binding of manuscript. So these are the 4 stages, the how we can find information how manuscript was prepared. As we can find again the information about Tawarik which were written by learned people, they were all written for the sultans with anticipation of rich rewards. As we have already seen with the first part, for the rich rewards these manuscripts were written. This record was maintained just in the phase of for the willingness of only rich rewards. They also advised the rulers on governance, as we have already seen, emphasizing the importance of just rule based on birthright and gender distinction, and that was not shared by anyone else. So now these are the new words, as you will find, about birthright and the gender distinction. So before starting to this next paragraph, we will find the meanings of these both words. So you will see on your screen, birthright refers to the privileges claimed on account of the birth. So there are some privileges which are given directly on the basis of birth. If a person has born in A caste, A religion, A category, whatsoever it is, so directly that person gets all the benefits which are given to A. So that means that is birthright. The second part you will find gender distinctions. Gender distinctions, that is only social and biological difference between men and women. So as we have already studied with the previous standard in 600 about the discrimination, about inequality, we have completed those lessons. So we have find about gender discrimination. So that is different. Gender distinctions, don't confuse with the word. So gender discrimination arises only because of the social and biological differences which must not be there. Our constitution today, if we discuss, it does not allow any kind of discrimination on the basis of gender or anything else. So I am not going to discuss much about that part. We will be discussing in civics. So that is only the social and biological differences between men and women, but how it can affect something, so that we will come to know with the next paragraph. Razia, she was the daughter of Sultan Shamsuddin Iltutmish. As we all know, she became the Sultan of Delhi in 1236. but she was dethroned only in 1240, and the reason behind it was only being a woman. So as she was a woman, the people were not able to accept her as the ruler. So it was unacceptable to the nobles that a woman should not be their ruler, and that was the only reason. So gender distinction, as you can find, it has played an important role. So as she became the ruler, she was very able, because we find this information from the Minhaj-e-Siraj, as he has written about her. So even famous chronicler of the age, means medieval age, Minhaj-e-Siraj, also recognized her as more able than all her brothers. So you can find that she was very well able than all her brothers. Means Razia was the more able ruler than all her brothers, but still she was not given an opportunity, as she was throned in 1236, but she was dethroned only in 1240. So because they were not comfortable with a woman ruler, they were all not comfortable with her, and only the reason was she was a lady. So that shows the gender distinction. People, as they accept such things, and because of those only such situations occur in the society. Next we will find about the from garrison town to empire. You can find this title in your textbook also. If you have not gone through the textbook, I request you again to read the lesson again, or else if you have completed, once again go through this part from garrison town to empire. Read it very carefully and then only start or resume with this video. From garrison to empire, you will find in the 13th century the control of Delhi sultans rarely went beyond heavily fortified towns occupied by garrisons. So here is a definition you will find about garrison. So it refers to a town which is fortified with soldiers. So they had not much control, as you can find. In the 13th century, the control of the Delhi sultans rarely went beyond those towns. So they had a control only up to these fortified towns. Apart from that, beyond from that limit, they didn't have any kind of control. Delhi's authority was challenged by Mongols and by governors who rebelled at any sign of the sultan's weaknesses. So wherever they found any weakness, immediately the people, means you can understand, Mongols and governors started attacking. That means their rule, their authority was challenged by Mongols and governors, and because of their rebel, we can understand that the power of Sultan was decreasing. The expansion of Delhi Sultanate took place under the reign of Balban Alauddin Khilji Muhammad bin Tughlaq. So we can find that during their period, their rule, the expansion of Delhi Sultanate took place, as you can find every detail here also. Here we are going to see a new word, that is hinterland. So hinterland refers to the land adjacent to a city or port, and that supplies with goods and services, as it has been already in the second part also, the word which you have already seen, hinterland. So that means only the land that is just nearby city. It can be even a port city or a part of port that supplies city with goods and services. So the city is always dependent on this hinterland. From there only they find their goods, or their goods are supplied to them. So this is what about we are going to see now, the next part. In the early 13th century, there was no significant expansion beyond the fortified towns. It was only during the reign of Ghiyasuddin Balban, Alauddin Khilji and Muhammad bin Tughlaq that Delhi saw expansion for the first time. As I am repeating this part again, because these three names are very important, you must remember that during whose reign the Delhi Sultanate expanded. So you must be aware about these three names. The expansion was initiated with the internal frontier in the introductory video. If you have not seen part 1, so in part 1 you will find about the internal and external affairs, and by that only internal and external expansion, as you will be finding the details. The expansion was initiated with the internal frontier. How it was done? So forests were cleared with Ganga Yamuna Dab, that is Do Ab. Ab means river and Do means two. So there is a fertile region. So in Ganga Yamuna Dab, and hunter-gatherers and pastoralists expelled from their habitats, and these lands were given to the peasants in order to promote agriculture. So as you can find with the first part, that forests were cleared first, and the hunters and gatherers, pastoralists who were actually residing there from a long period of time, they all had left now. They had expelled from their places, their habitats, and these lands were given to peasants in order to promote agriculture. Regional trades were also promoted. So regional trading also now came into existence. We will find about the external frontier. That was the next phase of expansion, which started with Alauddin Khilji in southern India and culminated with Muhammad Taghlaq. So this is about the external trade, as we will be finding the information as we have got this. So with this part you will find, with this slide you will find the two maps as they are also in your textbook. So you can go through both the maps very carefully. The information about these maps are also given. So the armies of Delhi Sultanate had marched across a large part of the subcontinent till the reign of Muhammad Taghlaq. They defeated rivals, seized the cities also. The Sultanate collected taxes from the peasantry. So this is only the information about the taxes you can find. So these are the most important details. Again, I am repeating it. The armies of Delhi Sultanate had marched across a large part of the subcontinent till the reign of Muhammad Taghlaq. So this is the part of external expansion, as you can find. So this is now the next phase which we are discussing, external frontier. So now the armies have started marching across a large part of their own rule and establishing their own administration or their power. So here we are also helped with a picture of masjid. A mosque is called a masjid in Arabic, literally a place where Muslim prostrates in reverence to Allah. In a congregational mosque, that is Masjid-e-Jami, or we can say Jama Masjid, Muslims read their prayers, that is called namaz. Members of the congregation choose the most respected learned male as their leader, and that is known as Imam for the rituals of prayers. We have gone through these words in the previous part also. So these are not new words for you, but again you are getting all this information. As you can find the last, that is, he also delivers the sermon. As we have discussed about moral teachings or moral stories are informed to them, and thus they find something about the spiritual knowledge, and that is known as khutbah, as we have already seen this word, and that is discussed only in Friday prayers. So during prayer, Muslims stand facing Makkah. In India, that part is in the west, and this is called Qibla, as we have also seen this part. So this is about the picture of masjid, as you can find the same detail in your textbook also. With the next part, we will be resuming with our administration and consolidation during Delhi Sultan's period. So till then, keep watching, keep learning. Thank you.